Welcome to another edition of the Radio Coffee House Show, where Jesus meets coffee meets talk radio. And the next one starts right now. What's up, everybody? Clint Armitage with the Radio Coffee House. Thanks for coming back and thanks for listening in. All right, so today's show is going to be about someone that nobody really knows about, but then they do know about him. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a guy by the name of Hank Erwin who most people know about. If I explain it to you, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But offhand, when I just say his name, you don't know what I'm talking about, and you don't know who I'm talking about. So let me break it down. Hank Erwin was the chaplain that was part of the revival at Woodlawn High School in Birmingham in the early 1970s, 1974. And he was the one that led the prayer to bring the whole football team to Christ, and that changed everything when it came to the racial tensions that were going on in Alabama at the time. Such a cool story, but little unknown background of the story. So I'm going to go over that, and we're going to listen to the trailer for the Woodlawn movie, because I just recently rewatched it again. And then I'm going to talk about Hank Erwin and kind of how it all came about, not only his story, but how the Woodlawn movie came about. And there's a little twist in it here that you'll find out in a minute. Let's get into it.
Jesus says to love our enemies. We have to love those that oppose us. If you only love those that love you back, what kind of love is that?
There's something special about you. I can see it. You have a gift, and you have to decide what you want to do with it.
I can't. I play for a team that doesn't even want me. Anybody like me?
I'd like to have a meeting with the football team. I've seen things all over the country.
Well, you and I can see that meeting.
Do something about this.
It's not my fault, Owen. I'm trying to coach football.
He's bigger than football.
What would you say if I told you it doesn't have to be this way? What would you be prepared to do? I'm asking you right now to stand up and make a decision, to change, to forgive, to be forgiven. That's how much God loves you.
What just happened?
Look at me. I'm proud of you. Win or lose, you my son. The good book says, without a vision, the people perish. I say, go give it to them.
How many black players you got?
Not nearly enough.
Why you see that changing?
Because it's time. You know the difference between you and these people? They're cowards. And you ain't.
Nobody out there knows what's happened with this team. But when you win on this day, they will!
They call him touchdown Tony Nathan. He's homegrown, right in Birmingham.
This is your moment. This is your time. So you go and take it. You go and take it.
This is what happens when God shows up.
All right, that was a powerful trailer, wasn't it? And if you haven't seen the movie, you got to go see it. It's called Woodlawn. Such an inspirational story. And I actually didn't realize there was a background story for Erwin, the chaplain or the spiritual leader, the inspirational leader that came at a time where Birmingham was having big problems with racial tensions because they just had integrated the school. Blacks and whites were actually being integrated together, and there was obviously some tension at the time. The information that I was researching, I found out a few things. Most of the information I'm going to lay out actually comes from the Troy University newspaper. It's called the Troy Messenger. I started doing some research to find out a little bit more about Hank Erwin, because I was like, you know what? Who is this guy? Like, you see him in the movie, and he's a big part of the movie. He's a big part of what God did in the movie and in real life. And then you don't really know much about him. You don't know his background, his history. He just shows up, and then the movie goes on, and you kind of don't know what goes on with him or what happened with him or how it all started with him. And so I was kind of curious, so I just started looking it up. And I found some really cool information. So, like I said, I'm going to get most of it from the Troy University newspaper called the Troy Messenger. So let's just start right here. Hank Erwin, again, was the inspirational leader that led all the Woodlawn players, the football players, to Christ, which started kind of a revival in the school and in the city. And then it moved, beyond that. It was kind of part of the whole Jesus revolution that happened during the 70s. Hank Erwin, who actually was a central figure in the movie, he was also the central figure in this whole revival that happened at the school. So while he was attending Troy State University, he was playing on the baseball team in around 1967. And he made a decision that he was going to start playing for God's glory and not his own glory. He made a decision to do that. And he was a member of the Wales Goebel Ministries in Birmingham in 1974. And at that time, he was called upon to speak to the Woodlawn High School football team. Maybe it could ease some of the racial tensions that were going on amongst the athletes during that time when the school was integrated or desegregated. His wife Sheila said this, that the school was a racial hotbed. She was actually an intern at the school. She said the black students didn't want to be there. They wanted to be at their own school where they could be, participate like class presidents and be on the football team, be captains of the football team and all that. But at Woodlawn, they weren't a part of anything really because they were just getting integrated, right? And then the white students didn't want them there either. And so nobody was happy is what Sheila Erwin said. And obviously it went from verbal exchanges, heated verbal exchanges to fighting, and then even knives were brought out. And, in Birmingham, there was bombings and stuff going on at the time, too. It was a big deal. There was like a lot of bombings going on during this time. And so Hank Erwin was asked to speak to the athletes on the football team. And that's what he did. So he spoke to the football team, and basically all the Woodlawn players listened to his message, to his speech. And he said there was one hope, one truth, one way to the spiritual healing that would have to take place in order to bring unity to the school and unity to the football team. And through this, this way, which is Jesus, a revival happened. And it led to everybody's hearts being changed, not only on the team, but in the school and beyond. They say that in the locker room, the players came to Christ that day. Most every one of them came to Christ. And then Hank Erwin says, they knelt together and got up loving each other, quote unquote. And they came together and won a bunch of games. And then there was a championship game, the high school championship game. And it was the Woodlawn Colonels against the Banks Jets. And that was an undefeated high school football team as well around the way. And that game was so big, it brought so many people together. There was over 42,000 fans that showed up at Legion Field in Birmingham. And it was also said that 20,000 people were turned away. So they potentially could have had over 60,000 people attending a high school football game, which in Alabama, the 40,000 was actually a record, a state record that is still the record. But they could have had 60,000 if the stadium could hold that many. They had to turn away 20,000 of them. So again, it's the biggest high school football game attendance in the history of Alabama. So Erwin says there was, in the big football game, there was Bible verses that were, written on signs all over the stands. People were holding all these signs with Bible verses on them. And then on the field, the banners that the teams bust through in order to start the game, there was Bible verses there, and they were basically saying one way, one truth, one life, And so both teams were affected by this. And so they played together. They even had a summer camp training together, and they even gave glory to God together. But what was amazing to me was that God used one guy to come in, talk to a football team. They gave their hearts to Christ, so they started changing within the team, and then it went outside of the team, it went to the school, and then it went to the city, and then it went beyond. And I'm thinking of how God does these amazing things where he changed people's hearts. He literally can change people's hearts, and then huge miracles happen. That's amazing to me. When I think about it, You think about the miracle that happened, and then the miracle that happened throughout the Jesus Revolution during the 70s. And now I'm kind of equating it to what we're seeing today. We're seeing this type of revival in colleges today. Colleges and universities across the country. Young people are coming to Christ. They're getting baptized. They're doing these revivals for multiple days. It blows me away how the Lord will come down, meet with his people, and do incredible things during times that are so difficult, so rough, so unloving, so dangerous, so violent. It kind of reminds me of what's going on today. I think we need to start understanding what true love is. I think if we stepped away from our pride and our ego and our uncomfortableness and our embarrassment and everything that we feel, if we step away from our feelings and actually just listen to what God is telling us to do, and he's also showed us what to do, and then when he actually speaks, that we just follow through, we just do it. And we don't let our feelings get in the way. We don't let our logic get in the way. And we just do what he's asking us to do. I think if we can love people like he does, then it wouldn't matter and we wouldn't let pride get in the way or ego get in the way. We'd be able to get past that because love overcomes all. Love casts out fear. So I want to read something from the book of John about love. John chapter 15, starting at verse 9. Here goes. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you, that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command: love each other. I mean, Jesus says it. He says that he remains in his Father's love, and then we can remain in his love. And then if we keep his commands, we'll remain in his love. When he gives you direction, when he gives you instructions, those instructions are going to include loving, and it's going to be loving somebody. The only thing that holds us back from the joy that he says that we'll have is by us not following through to his commands to love one another. I can tell you, this is one of the things that is difficult for me, that I've been trying to work on for years, because not only the job, but just my hardened heart made it difficult for me to love people. It was hard for me to love people, hard for me to have compassion on people. And I had to pray to the Lord to change my heart from stone to flesh. And it's not all the way there yet, but I'm starting to understand God's love, not only for me, because that's one thing, that was one barrier that I had to get through, was understanding that God loves me that much. And if he loves me that much, he loves everyone else that much. He loves you that much. And that love is what's going to bring us joy. It's also going to be the light that breaks the darkness. His love conquers hate. So just like in the movie and in real life, because it was based on a true story, God's love overcame the hate that was going on in Birmingham at that time. And though it chronicles the football player Tony Nathan, who ends up being famous as a NFL football player for the Miami Dolphins, went to 2 Super Bowls. But so I wanted to kind of see what it was all about and where it started from. And it started from a guy by the name of Hank Erwin. But the little twist here that I actually found out while I was continuing to research about this guy was he would tell his two sons, John and Andy, the story of Woodlawn. So the bedtime stories, he says, wasn't about, King Arthur or anything like that. He says he would always tell them Woodlawn bedtime stories and how God showed up. And then you find out a little bit later on, as you do a little bit more research, who John and Andy are. Well, they are John and Andy Erwin, the filmmakers. And you guessed it, they're the ones that made Woodlawn. So the guy in the film, Hank Erwin, has two sons, tells them bedtime stories, and then they end up doing a film about Woodlawn and about Hank Erwin and this revival and how God touched the city with his love to change the racial climate and landscape. These are the same filmmakers, John and Andy Erwin, that are currently making the House of David series on Amazon Prime. They are wonderful filmmakers. But you can see how God does these amazing things. Not only does he set off this whole revival in this high school, and then it goes to the city, and then it's part of this whole Jesus revolution that was going on in the 70s, all about Jesus, and he's the way, the truth, and the life, and passing on Jesus' love to everybody. And then he brings up two boys of the guy who started the prayer in this high school, and then they do the movie, and then they're doing all these awesome Christian movies and TV shows, and they're doing it well. God is amazing. He touches things and he touches people to do amazing things, and his love is obvious. His fingerprint on everything is obvious. Don't you want to be a part of that? Like, what is God calling you to do? How is your calling and your purpose connected to this huge global thing called love, the love of God? He's going to do something through you, but we have to listen to him. We have to follow through with what he's asking us to do. We may not know now what it is. We may not even understand any connection at all until later on, maybe generations. Maybe we won't even know in this lifetime. But it will happen because God is true. Guaranteed, God's going to do something huge with your life if you follow your calling. If you do the things that he's asking you to do, you're going to see the fruit and having that joy and understanding God's love. Is God calling you to do something big? It starts off small and it's going to grow. Just like the 5 loaves and 2 fish feeding thousands of people. And we're going to see some amazing things. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that story. And if you haven't seen Woodlawn, the movie, go check it out. It's so inspirational. And that was a cool twist that the two boys that heard all these stories when they were little are now the filmmakers that made it a reality. That is awesome. Only God would do something like that. So cool. All right, thanks for listening. My name is Clint Armitage. This is the Radio Coffee House. And until next time, stay safe and God bless. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Radio Coffee House Show, where we're all about Jesus, coffee, and radio. We'll see you next time.